What if a penny from 1970 sitting in an old jar, coin collection, or forgotten drawer could be worth far more than its 1 cent face value? Before you spend another Lincoln penny, take a close look at the date and the tiny letter underneath it, because a 1970 Lincoln cent can become surprisingly valuable when the right variety, condition, or error is involved. And here's the part that makes this coin so interesting. Not every 1970 penny is rare, and most are not worth anything close to $1 million. But certain unusual examples have attracted serious attention from collectors, and one tiny detail can make the difference between an ordinary penny and a coin worth hundreds, thousands, or potentially much more. So if you have a 1970 Lincoln penny with a D mint mark, don't click away. In the next few minutes, you'll learn exactly what to look for, which mistakes people make, and why some collectors are willing to pay big money for the right coin. Let's start with the basics. The coin you're looking for is the 1970 Lincoln cent, struck at the Denver Mint. On the front, you'll see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, with the words, "Liberty," and "In God We Trust." Just below the date, you should see a small letter D. That little D is the mint mark. And this is where the story gets interesting. Millions of 1970 Lincoln cents were produced, so simply finding a 1970 penny does not mean you have $1 million coin. In fact, most examples found in circulation are worth only a small amount above face value, depending on condition. But coin collecting has one rule that can change everything. Rarity matters. And rarity doesn't always mean an entire year was produced in tiny numbers. Sometimes, rarity comes from a variety. Sometimes it comes from an error. Sometimes it comes from an extraordinary state of preservation. And sometimes the most valuable feature is something so small that you could easily miss it with your eyes. That's why you should never judge your 1970 penny by the date alone. Now look closely at the date. The 1970 Lincoln cent is famous among collectors because of a major variety involving the date, particularly the shape and appearance of the numerals. The 1970 cent is especially known for the famous small date and large date varieties. But collectors also examine other 1970 cents carefully for unusual characteristics. Here's the important point. Don't assume every 1970 penny with a strange-looking date is automatically rare. This is where many online videos and social media posts can become confusing. A coin can look different because of lighting, wear, damage, cleaning, or even the angle of the photograph. A true collectible variety needs to be identified using reliable diagnostic features, not just because one number appears slightly different. And there's another trap. People often see a dramatic claim online saying a 1970 penny is worth $100,000 or even $1 million. Then they find one in their pocket and immediately think they've hit the jackpot. But professional collectors don't value coins based on headlines. They look at the exact variety, mint mark, grade, surface quality, strike, rarity, and most importantly, actual market evidence. So let's talk about condition. Imagine you find two 1970 pennies. They are the same year. They both have the D mint mark. They were made at the same mint. But one has been sitting in circulation for decades. It's scratched, darkened, worn, and has lost much of its original detail. The other looks almost untouched. The second coin can be dramatically more desirable. Why? Because condition can transform the value of a coin. Collectors use grading systems to describe preservation. A heavily circulated coin may have very little premium, while a beautiful uncirculated example can attract much more attention. And at the highest levels, tiny differences matter. A coin with sharp lettering, clean surfaces, strong luster, and minimal marks can be far more desirable than an ordinary circulated example. But wait, because there's another thing you need to check. Look at the surfaces. Do you see unusual doubling? Are the letters or numbers showing signs that appear duplicated? Is the date strangely distorted? Does the mint mark look abnormal? Are there unusual raised areas, missing details, or other features that don't appear normal? These are the kinds of clues that can lead collectors to investigate a coin more carefully. However, there is a huge difference between a genuine mint error and damage that happened after the coin left the mint. For example, someone can accidentally hit a penny with a tool, bend it, scratch it, flatten part of the design, or expose it to chemicals. Those changes can look dramatic, but they usually don't make a coin valuable. A genuine mint error is different. It happened during the manufacturing process. And that's exactly why authenticated errors can be highly collectible. Think about what happens inside a mint. Blank metal planchets are prepared, fed into machines, and struck with enormous pressure between specially prepared dies. Everything has to line up correctly. But machines are not perfect. Sometimes something goes wrong. A die can shift. Planchet can be improperly prepared. A strike can happen in an unusual way. And when that mistake survives into a finished coin, collectors may pay a premium to own it. That's where the excitement begins. Imagine pulling an old 1970 Lincoln penny from a box of coins and noticing something that looks completely wrong. Instead of throwing it back into the pile, you stop. You grab a magnifying glass. You check the date. You check the D. You look at Lincoln's portrait. You inspect the lettering. And suddenly, this 1-cent coin becomes a mystery. Is it damage? Is it a die variety? Is it an error? Or is it simply a normal coin that looks unusual because of wear? That question is what makes coin hunting so addictive. Now, let's address the million-dollar claim directly. Could a normal 1970 Lincoln penny be worth $1 million? No. You should not expect an ordinary 1970 cent to sell for $1 million. There is no reason to believe that simply having the date 1970 and a mint mark makes a penny worth $1 million. But that doesn't mean you should ignore the coin. The real opportunity is discovering whether your coin has an exceptional characteristic that separates it from millions of ordinary examples. And this is a lesson that applies to almost every old coin. The headline price is not the starting point. The details are. For example, a rare variety can command a premium because collectors actively want it. A major mint error can become desirable because very few examples exist. And an exceptionally preserved coin can become valuable because high-grade examples are difficult to find. Now here's something many beginners overlook. Never clean your coin. If you find an old 1970 penny that looks dirty, resist the temptation to polish it. Scrubbing, rubbing, chemical cleaning, or abrasive materials can permanently damage the original surface. And ironically, trying to make a coin look better can actually make it worth less. Collectors generally prefer original surfaces. So if you think you've discovered something unusual, handle the coin carefully by its edges and keep it in a safe holder. And don't rush to sell it to the first person who tells you it's worthless. At the same time, don't believe someone who immediately tells you it's worth $1 million without explaining exactly why. Ask questions. What variety is it? What error does it have? Has it been authenticated? What grade is it? Are there comparable sales? Those questions can protect you from both disappointment and bad deals. Now let's build the value ladder. A typical circulated 1970 Lincoln cent is generally not a life-changing treasure. It may have only a modest collectible value depending on condition. But as the condition improves, the potential value can rise. An unusually high-grade example can become much more interesting. A certified coin with exceptional eye appeal can attract serious collectors. And a rare, authenticated error or variety can move into an entirely different category. That's where the big numbers come from. Not because every 1970 penny is secretly a fortune, but because the right combination of rarity, condition, demand, and authenticity can create a premium. And that is the real hidden money secret. The coin doesn't have to be old enough to be ancient. It doesn't have to be made of gold. It doesn't even have to look spectacular at first glance. Sometimes the difference is microscopic. So grab your coins. If you have a 1970 Lincoln cent, start by checking the date. Make sure it really says 1970. Then confirm the D mint mark beneath the date. Next, examine the coin under good lighting. Look for unusual doubling, strange shapes, missing details, abnormal surfaces, or anything that appears inconsistent with a normal strike. Then compare your coin with reliable reference images and auction records. And remember, a photograph can be misleading. If you genuinely believe you have a rare variety or major mint error, professional authentication can be worth considering before making any major decision. Because the biggest mistake you can make is confusing a damaged penny with a rare one, or worse, selling a valuable coin for a fraction of what it could be worth. Now imagine this. You're cleaning out an old drawer. You find a handful of pennies. Most are ordinary. Then one catches your attention. 1970. D underneath. You almost toss it back. But something about the date looks different. You stop. You inspect it. And suddenly, that 1-cent coin becomes the most interesting thing in the entire drawer. That is exactly why collectors search through old coins. Not because every coin is valuable. Because every coin has a story, and occasionally one has something extraordinary. So if you have a 1970 D Lincoln penny, don't assume it's $1 million coin. Instead, ask the better question. What makes this particular penny different? That question could lead you to a valuable discovery. And now I want to know about you. Have you ever found a 1970 D Lincoln penny in an old collection, jar, drawer, or pocket change? Check it carefully and tell me what you find. And if you have other old Lincoln pennies, don't put them away just yet. The next coin you inspect could have a rare variety, a major error, or an unusually high grade that changes the story completely. Remember, the goal isn't to believe every giant price you see online. The goal is to know what you actually have. So check those dates. Check those mint marks. Check the tiny details. Because sometimes the difference between 1 cent and serious collector interest is hiding in a detail most people never notice. And if you enjoy discovering the hidden secrets behind old American coins, subscribe for more rare coin stories, valuable varieties, and coins you should always check before spending them. Your next discovery could already be sitting in your change jar. What if the ordinary 1978 Lincoln penny sitting in your pocket right now looks completely worthless? But one tiny detail could make you stop before spending it. A 1978 Lincoln penny with no mint mark has been surrounded by some incredible claims, including stories of coins supposedly worth hundreds of thousands or even $1 million. But here's where things get interesting. Most 1978 pennies with no mint mark are not $1 million coins. In fact, the no mint mark version was made at the Philadelphia Mint, and millions were produced. So why are collectors still interested in this coin? Because the date, mint mark, condition, and possible errors can completely change what a penny is worth. And if you have a 1978 penny, there are a few things you absolutely need to check before you toss it into a jar, cash register, or vending machine. Let's start with the detail that most people miss. Look directly underneath the date on your 1978 Lincoln penny. Do you see a small letter? If you see a D, your coin was made at the Denver Mint. If you see an S, it was struck at the San Francisco Mint, generally for proof sets. But if there is no letter at all, you have the Philadelphia version. And that is exactly the coin we're talking about today. Now, before you get excited, there is something important to understand. A 1978 penny with no mint mark is not automatically rare. That's one of the biggest mistakes people make when they hear the words, no mint mark. On many Lincoln cents, collectors search for missing mint marks because certain years have unusual or valuable varieties. But for a 1978 Lincoln cent, the absence of a mint mark is normal for Philadelphia production. So if your 1978 penny has no mint mark, don't assume you just found $1 million coin. But don't spend it yet either. Because the real mystery begins when you inspect the condition and the details. Imagine finding an old penny in a drawer. It has scratches, dark spots, and worn lettering. You might look at it for 2 seconds and decide it's just another 1-cent coin. Now imagine another 1978 penny that looks almost untouched. The Lincoln portrait is sharp. The lettering is crisp. The original copper color is still visible. The surfaces are clean and free from major marks. Those two coins may have the exact same date and mint status, but collectors can view them very differently. That's because condition matters. A coin that survived nearly 5 decades with exceptional preservation can attract much more attention than an average circulated example. And here's another twist. 1978 was part of the final era when U.S. cents were still made from a bronze composition containing mostly copper. That gives these pennies their familiar reddish-brown or copper appearance. But there's a catch. Color can matter. Professional coin graders commonly describe Lincoln cents using 3 broad color categories: brown, red-brown, and red. A bright red 1978 penny with excellent preservation can be far more interesting to collectors than a heavily worn brown example. So take a second look at yours. Is the coin dark and worn? Is it reddish-brown? Or does it still have that bright original copper red appearance? Don't clean it. This is extremely important. If you find an old penny that looks dirty, your first instinct might be to polish it, scrub it, or use a chemical cleaner to make it shine. That can actually hurt the coin. Collectors generally prefer original surfaces. Cleaning can leave scratches, unnatural shine, or chemical damage that makes a coin less desirable. In other words, trying to make your penny look better can sometimes make it worth less. Now let's move to the part that gets really interesting. Errors. This is where an ordinary-looking 1978 penny can become much more unusual. When coins are produced, the process involves enormous machines, dies, planchets, pressure, heat, and extremely precise alignment. Most coins come out correctly, but occasionally something goes wrong. A die can become damaged. A planchet can be improperly prepared. A strike can happen in an unusual way. And when a genuine mint error escapes into circulation, collectors may pay a premium for it. So instead of asking only, "Is my 1978 penny worth $1 million?" ask a better question. Does my 1978 penny have something unusual that other 1978 pennies don't have? That question could save you from throwing away something interesting. Start with the date. Look closely at the numbers 1, 9, 7, and 8. Are they shaped normally? Does anything look doubled? Does one part appear strangely thick? Is there unusual separation around the lettering? Now check the word liberty. Then check In God We Trust. You're looking for unusual doubling, distortions, or other characteristics that appear to be part of the strike rather than damage that happened later. And this distinction is critical. A damaged coin is not automatically an error coin. If someone dropped the penny, scratched it with a tool, or hit it against another object, that damage happened after the coin left the mint. Collectors usually don't treat ordinary post-mint damage as a valuable mint error. But a genuine mint-made error is different. And this is where magnification can help. You don't need an expensive microscope. Even a basic magnifying glass or phone camera can help you inspect the details. Look around the date. Look around the lettering. Look at Lincoln's portrait. Then flip the coin over. The reverse of a 1978 Lincoln cent features the Lincoln Memorial. Check the columns. Check the lettering. Check the rim. Check the spacing. And pay special attention to anything that looks dramatically different from a normal 1978 penny. Here's another mistake people make. They see a strange-looking penny online with a huge price tag, then assume their coin must have the same value. Don't do that. A coin's value depends on exactly what it is, its condition, whether the claimed error is genuine, and whether collectors actually want it. An asking price on an online marketplace is not the same thing as a confirmed sale. Someone can list an ordinary penny for $1 million. That does not mean someone will pay $1 million for it. This is especially important with viral coin videos. You may see headlines claiming a common penny is worth $100,000, $500,000, or even $1 million. Those headlines can create excitement, but the number alone doesn't prove anything. So what about this 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny? The honest answer is much more interesting than a fake $1 million promise. A normal circulated 1978 Philadelphia cent is generally a common coin and usually worth little more than its face value. But high-grade examples can be worth more, especially when they have exceptional preservation. And unusual, authenticated mint errors can potentially bring substantially higher premiums. That means the $1 million claim should not be treated as the normal value of a 1978 no-mint mark penny. Instead, think of the $1 million story as the mystery that gets you to look closer. Because the real treasure hunt is in the details. Picture this. You're cleaning out an old family box. Inside are receipts, photographs, buttons, and a handful of pennies. One of them is dated 1978. You almost throw it away. Then you notice there is no mint mark. You remember hearing that no mint mark pennies can be valuable. You grab a magnifying glass. The coin is surprisingly sharp. The color is attractive. The lettering looks unusual. Now you're not looking at 1 cent anymore. You're looking at a question. Is this normal? Is it damage? Is it a variety? Is it a legitimate mint error? And that question is exactly what makes coin collecting so addictive. You don't need to start with a rare gold coin. Sometimes the hunt begins with a penny that everybody else ignores. But there's one more thing you should know. If you think your 1978 penny might have an important error, don't immediately sell it to the first person who makes an offer. Take clear photographs. Compare it with known examples. Get opinions from experienced collectors or a reputable coin dealer. For potentially valuable coins, professional authentication and grading can be especially important. And never alter the coin before getting it examined. No polishing. No chemicals. No scraping. No trying to fix the surface. Leave it exactly as you found it. Now let's get to the big question. Could a 1978 Lincoln penny with no mint mark really be worth $1 million? For a normal example, no. A standard 1978 Philadelphia penny is not a $1 million coin simply because it has no mint mark. But could an extraordinarily rare, genuinely authenticated error or unique discovery connected to a 1978 cent command a much higher price? That is where the conversation becomes more complicated. Extreme auction prices are reserved for extraordinary coins, not ordinary examples. So if you have a 1978 penny, don't throw it away because it isn't automatically worth a fortune. And don't believe every $1 million headline either. Instead, check it. That tiny coin has survived since 1978. It may have passed through countless hands, stores, cash registers, pockets, cars, and kitchen drawers. And after nearly 50 years, you're the person holding it. Maybe it's ordinary. Maybe it's an unusually high-grade example. Maybe it has damage. Or maybe, just maybe, it has a legitimate mint-made error that deserves a closer look. Now I want you to do something. Go find your old pennies. Look for 1978. Then check underneath the date. If there is no mint mark, don't automatically celebrate and don't automatically spend it. Inspect the condition. Check the color. Look at the date. Look closely at the lettering. Flip it over and inspect the reverse. And if something looks genuinely unusual, get a second opinion before making any decision. Because the biggest mistake in coin collecting isn't always missing a $1 million coin. Sometimes it's throwing away a coin that you never took the time to understand. So, do you have a 1978 Lincoln penny with no mint mark? Look at it right now. Tell me in the comments what condition it's in, whether it has any unusual markings, and whether yours is bright red, reddish brown, or brown. And remember, the next valuable coin might not be sitting in a museum. Could be hiding in an old jar, a forgotten drawer, or the bottom of your pocket. Subscribe for more rare coin discoveries, hidden varieties, and the small details that can make ordinary-looking U.S. coins surprisingly interesting. And before you spend that next old penny, check it first. What if a 1979 Lincoln penny sitting in your pocket right now could be worth far more than 1 cent? Before you spend another old penny, take a close look at the date, the mint mark, and especially the tiny details most people never notice. Because one small difference can turn an ordinary-looking coin into a collector's prize. Today, we're taking a close look at the 1979 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what that missing mint mark means, which varieties and errors can make a 1979 penny valuable, what condition matters most, and whether your coin could actually be worth serious money. And here's the part that surprises many people. A 1979 penny with no mint mark is not automatically rare. In fact, the missing mint mark is completely normal for many 1979 Lincoln cents. But that doesn't mean you should ignore it. There are other details hiding on these pennies that can make a huge difference in value. And one of those details could be sitting right in front of you without looking special at first glance. Let's go back to 1979. The United States was producing huge numbers of Lincoln cents, and these coins were still being made from a copper-based composition. The familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln appeared on the front, while the Lincoln Memorial stood on the reverse. And if you find a 1979 penny without a letter underneath the date, don't assume something went wrong at the mint. That blank space is important. Coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint traditionally carried no mint mark. Meanwhile, cents made at other facilities could have a small D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. So when you see a 1979 penny with no mint mark, the first thing you should understand is this. You probably have a Philadelphia minted cent. And that alone does not make it worth $1 million. But now the real mystery begins. Because coin collectors don't just look at the year. They look at the entire coin. They examine the strike. They inspect the lettering. They check Lincoln's portrait. They study the rim. They look for doubling. They search for unusual shapes, missing details, die problems, and other mint-made errors. And sometimes, a coin that looks completely ordinary at first can become much more interesting after a careful inspection. So grab your 1979 penny if you have one. You don't need expensive equipment. A bright light and a basic magnifying glass can help you get started. First, look directly underneath the date. Do you see a D? An S? Or nothing? If there is nothing, that points toward Philadelphia. Now look at the date itself. Pay special attention to the numbers. Are the digits clean and normal? Or do you notice unusual doubling, distortion, or strange shapes around the edges of the numbers? This is where many beginners make a mistake. They see something that looks doubled and immediately assume they have a rare doubled die coin. But not every blurry or doubled-looking feature is a valuable error. Sometimes what you're seeing is machine doubling, die deterioration, damage, or simply the way light reflects from the coin. That's why identification matters. You don't want to clean the coin. You don't want to scratch it. And you definitely don't want to polish it until it shines. That could actually hurt its collector value. A natural, original surface is usually much more desirable than a heavily cleaned coin. Now let's move to the reverse. Look closely at the Lincoln Memorial. Check the lettering. Look at the columns. Inspect the edges of the buildings. And pay attention to anything that looks dramatically different from a normal 1979 cent. Why? Because genuine mint errors can attract collectors. A coin struck off center, for example, can be much more interesting than a normal cent, especially when the error is dramatic and clearly visible. A broad strike can also create an unusual appearance. A clipped planchet can produce a distinctive missing section along the edge. And other minting mistakes can create unusual coins that collectors may want to own. But there's another factor that can completely change the conversation. Condition. Imagine two 1979 pennies sitting side by side. Both are from Philadelphia. Both have no mint mark. Both are genuine. But one has spent decades circulating through vending machines, cash registers, pockets, and drawers. It's scratched. It's darkened. The details are worn. The other coin has been carefully preserved. Lincoln's hair details are sharp. The lettering is crisp. The original surface is attractive. There are very few marks. Which one would collectors rather have? The second coin. This is why you should never judge a coin's value just by its face value, its age, or the fact that it has no mint mark. Condition can make a dramatic difference. And here's something else you need to remember. A 1979 penny is not automatically valuable simply because someone online claims that one is worth millions. You'll often see sensational headlines claiming that an ordinary 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is worth $100,000, $500,000, or even $1 million. Those claims need to be treated very carefully. A coin's actual value depends on its specific variety, error status, condition, certification, rarity, and documented auction history. A normal 1979 Philadelphia cent is generally a common coin. So where does the $1 million story come from? Usually, it comes from mixing up extraordinary coins with ordinary examples, confusing asking prices with actual sales, or repeating unverified internet claims. And that distinction is incredibly important. A seller can list a coin for $1 million. That does not mean someone paid $1 million for it. The real question is, what did comparable coins actually sell for? That is the question serious collectors ask. So if you have a 1979 penny without a mint mark, don't throw it away. But don't quit your job just yet, either. Instead, inspect it carefully. Now let's talk about what could make your coin more interesting. Start with the strike. Is the coin centered normally? Or is part of the design missing because the blank was struck outside the proper position? Next, inspect the rim. Does it look normal? Or is there an unusual shape that appears to have happened during production rather than after the coin left the mint? Then inspect the lettering. Look at Liberty. Look at I In God We Trust. Look at the date. You're searching for genuine abnormalities that appear to be part of the original strike. And remember this simple rule. If the damage looks random and affects only one small area, It may have happened after the coin left the mint. If the unusual feature appears consistent with a minting error, it becomes much more interesting. Now here's another pattern interrupt. Turn the penny over. Seriously. A lot of people spend 5 minutes staring at the date and never check the reverse properly. The Lincoln Memorial design contains a huge amount of information. Look at the columns. Look at the lettering. Look at the rim. Compare your coin with another normal 1979 cent. Side-by-side comparisons can reveal differences that are almost impossible to notice when you're looking at one coin by itself. And if your coin looks unusual, take clear photos before doing anything else. Don't clean it. Don't scrape it. Don't bend it. Don't try to improve it. Preserve it exactly as you found it. Now let's get to the question everyone wants answered. How much is a 1979 Lincoln penny with no mint mark actually worth? For a normal circulated example, usually not much more than face value. That may sound disappointing, but it's actually good news for collectors. Why? Because it means the real hunt is not simply about finding any 1979 penny. The hunt is about finding the exceptional one. A high-grade, uncirculated example can bring more interest. A certified coin in an elite grade can become significantly more desirable. A genuine mint error can potentially bring a much higher premium. And a rare, dramatic, properly authenticated variety can be worth far more than an ordinary example. But $1 million valuation? That is not something you should assume for a normal 1979 no-mint mark penny. If someone tells you your ordinary 1979 Philadelphia cent is automatically worth $1 million because it has no mint mark, be skeptical. The missing mint mark is normal for Philadelphia cents. The real value comes from what else is happening on that coin. And that is the secret most viral videos leave out. The date alone doesn't create the fortune. The missing mint mark alone doesn't create the fortune. The possibility of value comes from rarity, condition, errors, varieties, and demand. Now imagine finding a 1979 penny in an old jar. At first, you see nothing special. You almost toss it back into circulation. But then you notice the strike is unusual. You look closer. You compare it with another 1979 penny. The difference is real. Suddenly, that 1-cent coin becomes a mystery worth investigating. That is what makes coin collecting so exciting. You are not just looking for old money. You are looking for history. You are looking for mistakes that escaped a massive production system. You are looking for coins that survived decades in exceptional condition. And sometimes you are looking for the one unusual detail that millions of people ignored. So before you spend your next 1979 Lincoln penny, give it a second look. Check the mint mark. Inspect the date. Study the lettering. Examine the reverse. Look at the rim. Check the condition. And most importantly, compare it with a normal example. If you think you've found something unusual, have it examined by a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service before believing an unbelievable online valuation. And now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1979 Lincoln penny with no mint mark? Have you ever found an unusual penny in your pocket change, an old collection, a coin jar, or even inside a drawer you forgot about? Take a close look before you spend it. Because while a normal 1979 no mint mark penny is generally common, an unusual error or exceptionally preserved example can tell a completely different story. And that is the real lesson. Never assume a coin is worthless just because it looks ordinary. But never assume it is worth a fortune just because someone posted a huge price online. Check the evidence. Check the details. And check the coin. Your next discovery could be sitting in plain sight. If you enjoyed this hidden coin hunt, subscribe for more rare coin discoveries, valuable Lincoln pennies, unusual mint errors, and old coins that collectors are watching. And remember, before you spend that penny, look twice. What if a penny you could find in an old jar, a coin collection, or even a forgotten drawer is hiding a value far beyond its 1-cent face value? And what if that penny is a 1985 Lincoln cent with a small D mint mark? Before you spend it, stop. Because some 1985 D Lincoln pennies can be collectible, and certain unusual examples can bring surprisingly strong prices. But there is a catch, and knowing that catch could mean the difference between a common penny and a truly valuable coin. Today, we're taking a close look at the 1985 D Lincoln penny, the Denver minted 1-cent coin that millions of people have probably handled without ever wondering whether it could be worth more. We'll look at what makes this penny interesting, the details collectors actually care about, the mistakes people make when checking their coins, and what you should realistically expect if you discover a special example. And stay with me because near the end, I'll explain the one thing you absolutely need to check before believing any huge value claim about a 1985 D penny. Picture this. You're cleaning out an old box of coins. Most of them look ordinary. A few are worn. Some are shiny. Then you notice one dated 1985. You turn it over and spot a tiny D underneath the date. At first, it looks like nothing special. But then you start wondering, could this be the penny people are talking about? That tiny letter matters because the D tells us the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. And while the 1985 D Lincoln cent is not automatically rare just because it has a D mint mark, collectors know that condition, errors, varieties, and unusual characteristics can completely change a coin story. This is where things get interesting. The first mistake people make is assuming that every old penny is automatically worth a fortune. That's not how coin collecting works. A coin can be more than 40 years old and still be worth only a small amount over face value. At the same time, another coin from the exact same year can be worth considerably more if it has the right combination of condition, rarity, and authentication. So if you have a 1985 D penny, don't immediately throw it into the million-dollar coin pile. Instead, become a detective. Start with the date. You're looking for 1985. Then look immediately below the date. Do you see a small D? If you do, you have a Denver minted Lincoln cent. Now take a closer look at Lincoln's portrait. Is the coin heavily scratched? Is the surface dull and worn? Are there stains, corrosion, or damage from cleaning? Or does it look unusually sharp? This is important because collectors generally pay much more attention to coins that have survived in exceptional condition. And here's the surprising part. Two pennies made in the same year can look completely different in value because one spent decades circulating through pockets, cash registers, and vending machines, while the other may have been protected almost immediately after leaving the mint. That difference can be enormous in the world of collectible coins. Now flip the coin over. Look at the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Check the columns. Check the lettering. Check the rim. Look for anything that seems doubled, distorted, unusually raised, missing, or strangely positioned. But be careful. Not every strange-looking mark is a valuable mint error. A scratch is not automatically an error. A dent is not automatically an error. Damage from machines is not automatically a mint mistake. And discoloration does not automatically make a penny rare. This is one of the biggest traps beginners fall into. They see something unusual and assume they've discovered a jackpot. But experienced collectors ask a different question. Was this feature created at the United States Mint, or did it happen after the coin entered circulation? That question can completely change the value. And there's another detail you should know. The 1985 Lincoln cent is made primarily of copper-plated zinc, unlike the older bronze Lincoln cents that many collectors associate with classic wheat pennies. That means you should not assume a 1985 D cent is valuable simply because it contains copper. Its collectible value comes from the coin itself, not from a huge amount of precious metal. Now let's talk about the claim that a 1985 D Lincoln penny is worth $1 million. You may see dramatic headlines online suggesting that an ordinary 1985 D penny can be worth $1 million. Here's the truth. A normal 1985 D Lincoln cent is not a $1 million coin. That's extremely important. There is no reason to believe that every 1985 D penny hiding in your change is secretly worth $1 million. However, that doesn't mean you should ignore yours. The real opportunity is finding something genuinely unusual, a major mint error, an exceptionally rare variety, an extraordinarily high-grade example, or a coin with characteristics that have been professionally authenticated and recognized by the numismatic community. That is where the mystery begins. Imagine finding a 1985 D cent that appears dramatically different from normal examples. Maybe the design has a genuine striking error. Maybe part of the lettering shows an unusual mint-created feature. Maybe the coin has an exceptionally strong strike and nearly flawless surfaces. Suddenly, you're no longer looking at an ordinary penny. You're looking at a potential collector piece. But before you start imagining a new house, a luxury car, or $1 million payday, there's one more step: authentication. This is where serious collectors separate real discoveries from internet rumors. A professional grading and authentication service can examine the coin, determine its condition, and identify recognized errors or varieties when appropriate. And that matters because a valuable coin is only as valuable as the evidence supporting its rarity. Now let's talk about condition. If your 1985 D penny has been sitting loose in a jar for decades, it probably has marks. That's normal. Look at the highest points of Lincoln's portrait. Look at his cheek, jaw, hair, and coat. Then inspect the reverse. Are the lines around the Lincoln Memorial sharp? Are the surfaces clean and original? Does the coin still have strong original mint luster? A coin that looks almost untouched can attract much more collector interest than a heavily circulated example. And here's a warning that could save you money. Never clean the coin just because you think cleaning will make it more valuable. Can do the exact opposite. Scrubbing, polishing, dipping, rubbing, or using household chemicals can leave permanent damage that professional collectors immediately notice. That shiny penny you improved could actually become less desirable. So if you think you have something special, leave it alone. Put it somewhere safe. Handle it by the edges. And get a qualified opinion before doing anything else. Now let's get to the part everyone has been waiting for. How much could a 1985 D Lincoln penny actually be worth? For a normal circulated example, the answer is usually simple. Not much more than face value. Some better condition examples can have additional collector value, especially if they are professionally graded and certified. And exceptional coins with legitimate mint errors or unusual recognized characteristics can potentially command substantially higher prices. But the exact amount depends on what makes the coin special. There is no universal $1 million price tag attached to the 1985 D Lincoln cent. That number should be treated with extreme skepticism unless there is specific documentation showing an actual sale of a particular coin for that amount. This is why you should never judge a coin based only on a sensational online headline. Look for auction records. Look for professional grading. Look for documented sales. And most importantly, compare your coin with verified examples. Now imagine you're holding your 1985 D penny again. You've checked the date. You've confirmed the D mint mark. You've examined Lincoln. You've checked the memorial. You've looked at the rim. And you've found something that genuinely appears unusual. That is the moment when you should slow down. Don't spend it. Don't clean it. Don't sell it to the first person who offers you a few dollars. Take clear photographs. Compare it with normal examples. And if the feature looks like a legitimate mint error or an exceptional variety, consider having it examined by a reputable coin professional or grading service. Because sometimes the biggest mistake collectors make isn't missing a rare coin. It's finding one and not realizing what they have. And there's one final reason you should check your old pennies. You don't need to own a giant collection. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars at a coin show. You can start with the coins already sitting around your house. Check old jars. Check inherited collections. Check coin rolls. Check forgotten drawers. Check the pennies that have been sitting untouched for years. And when you find a 1985 D Lincoln cent, remember this simple rule. The date alone does not make it rare. The D mint mark alone does not make it rare. And the claim of $1 million value does not make it rare. What matters is the combination of condition, authenticity, variety, and genuine mint-created errors. That's the real secret. So now I want to know, do you have a 1985 D Lincoln penny? If you do, take a close look at it before spending it. And if you notice something unusual, tell me what you found in the comments. Is the coin heavily circulated, nearly uncirculated, or does it have a strange feature that you can't explain? Because you never know what might be hiding in an ordinary pile of coins. Most pennies really are just pennies. But every once in a while, one coin tells a different story. And that's exactly why collectors keep looking. If you enjoyed this hidden value coin hunt, subscribe for more rare coins, valuable pennies, unusual mint errors, and surprising discoveries that could be hiding in everyday change. Your next interesting coin might already be sitting in your pocket. Stop before you spend that 1986 Lincoln penny. That tiny coin in your pocket could look completely ordinary, but one unusual detail can turn a common penny into a serious collector's coin, and that detail starts with the missing mint mark. If you have a 1986 Lincoln cent with no letter under the date, don't throw it away just yet. In this video, we're going to look at what that missing mint mark actually means, what mistakes collectors make when checking these coins, which errors can create real value, and how a normal-looking 1986 penny could become much more interesting than its 1-cent face value. But here's the important part. A 1986 penny with no mint mark is not automatically worth $1 million. In fact, the no mint mark version was made at the Philadelphia Mint, and billions were produced. Professional coin references list a mintage of more than 4.49 billion for the 1986 Philadelphia Lincoln cent. So why are people talking about huge values? That's where this gets interesting. Look closely at your coin. You'll see the date 1986 on the front, and directly underneath it, there may be absolutely nothing. No D, no S, no letter at all. And that is normal. For Lincoln cents made at Philadelphia during this period, the absence of a mint mark identifies Philadelphia production. So if your 1986 penny has no mint mark, that alone is not an error. But wait. There is a reason serious collectors still pay attention to unusual 1986 cents. It's all about condition, errors, varieties, and coins that were accidentally struck on the wrong planchet. Think about it this way. Imagine finding a penny that looks almost exactly like every other penny you've ever seen. You might toss it into a jar without thinking twice. But suppose that coin was struck on the wrong metal blank, had a major striking error, or survived decades with almost no damage. Suddenly, you're not looking at an ordinary penny anymore. You're looking at a collectible. And this is where you need to slow down. The first thing to check is the date. Make sure it really says 1986. Some coins can be heavily worn, scratched, or damaged, making certain digits difficult to read. You want to confirm the year before doing anything else. Next, look underneath the date. If there is no mint mark, that points to Philadelphia. Again, that is completely normal for this coin. The mistake many people make is assuming that no mint mark automatically means rare. It doesn't. And this is one of the biggest secrets in coin collecting. Rarity is not created simply because something looks different to a beginner. Rarity comes from limited production, unusual errors, exceptional condition, or strong demand from collectors. Now turn the coin over. You're looking at the Lincoln Memorial Reverse, which was used on Lincoln cents from 1959 through 2008. Check the lettering, the columns of the memorial, the rim, and the overall strike. Do you see anything strange? Maybe a doubled letter. Maybe an unusual shape around the date. Maybe a portion of the design appears to be missing. Maybe the coin has a strange rim or an abnormal edge. These are the details that can separate a normal coin from an error coin. But there's another clue that could matter even more. The condition. A 1986 penny that spent years bouncing around inside pockets, cash registers, vending machines, and coin jars can collect scratches, dents, stains, and wear very quickly. But imagine a 1986 cent that somehow escaped circulation. The surfaces are bright. The original red color is still visible. The details are sharp. The lettering is crisp. There are very few contact marks. That coin could be dramatically more desirable than a worn example. Professional grading services pay close attention to surface quality, luster, strike, and color when evaluating Lincoln cents. For modern Lincoln cents, extremely high grades can be difficult to achieve because even tiny marks can affect the grade. And here's where the numbers get surprising. A regular 1986 Lincoln cent is generally a very inexpensive coin. NGC's current price guide data shows low values for circulated and lower grade examples, with higher mint state grades bringing more. PCGS records, however, show that exceptional certified examples can sell for much more. One PCGS recorded 1986 Lincoln cent graded MS68, plus red sold for $2,400. Now stop for a second. That is a huge jump from 1 cent. But notice something important. It was not valuable simply because it was a 1986 penny with no mint mark. It was valuable because of its exceptional condition and certification. And there's an even more exciting possibility. What if the coin isn't a normal cent at all? What if it was struck on the wrong planchet? This has happened with United States coins, and when a coin is accidentally struck on a blank intended for another denomination, collectors can become very interested. There is actually a documented 1986 Lincoln cent struck on a 10-cent blank. One example weighing about 2.30 grams was certified MS-61 and sold at auction for $305.50. Now imagine finding something like that in an old collection. At first glance, it might look like a damaged penny, but the weight could tell a completely different story. That's why one of the smartest things you can do with an unusual coin is weigh it using an accurate digital scale. A normal 1986 Lincoln cent is made of copper-plated zinc and weighs about 2.5 grams. If your coin is significantly different, don't immediately assume you found $1 million mistake. Instead, investigate. Check the diameter. Check the thickness. Check the edge. Look for plating problems. Look for unusual metal showing through. And most importantly, don't clean it. This is a mistake beginners make all the time. They find a dark or dirty coin and think, I'm going to make this shiny. Then they grab a chemical, polishing cloth, or household cleaner. That can permanently damage the surface. Collectors generally want original surfaces, not artificially polished metal. So if you think your 1986 penny might be unusual, leave it alone. Now let's talk about the $1 million claim. You may have seen headlines saying a 1986 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is worth $1 million. That sounds incredible. But there is no credible basis for saying that an ordinary 1986 Philadelphia cent with no mint mark is automatically worth $1 million. That's the distinction you need to remember. A sensational headline can make a common coin sound like a guaranteed fortune. Real coin collecting is different. The actual value depends on the specific coin, the grade, the color, the strike, the error, the rarity, the authentication, and ultimately what collectors are willing to pay. That doesn't make the hunt less exciting. It actually makes it more exciting, because now you know exactly what to look for. Imagine opening an old jar of pennies. You grab a handful. Most are ordinary. You start sorting. 1970, 1971, 1972, 1973. Then you notice one 1986 cent that looks strangely sharp. You turn it sideways. The edge looks unusual. You weigh it. The number is different from what you expected. Now you have a mystery, and that mystery is worth investigating. Could it be damage? Could it be a counterfeit? Could it be an unusual planchet? Could it be a genuine mint error? That's how real discoveries begin. Not with a headline, with careful examination. And there's another reason the 1986 Lincoln cent deserves attention. The early and mid-1980s were an interesting period for U.S. coinage. The composition of the Lincoln cent had already changed from the traditional bronze alloy to copper-plated zinc in 1982, creating a different generation of Lincoln cents. The 1986 cent is part of that copper-plated zinc era. That means if you find something that looks like a solid copper-colored 1986 penny, you should take a closer look. But again, color alone doesn't prove rarity. A coin can change color because of age, environmental exposure, chemical reactions, or other factors. You want evidence. That's the difference between a coin that looks interesting and a coin that is genuinely valuable. So, what should you do if you have a 1986 Lincoln penny with no mint mark? First, confirm the date. Second, confirm there really is no mint mark. Third, inspect both sides under good lighting. Fourth, check the edge. Fifth, compare the coin with another normal 1986 cent. Sixth, consider weighing it if something seems unusual. And if you believe you have a genuine mint error or an exceptionally high-grade example, consider getting it evaluated by a reputable professional grading service. Do not rely on a random internet listing that claims every 1986 penny is worth thousands or millions. Look for actual auction records. Look for certified examples. Look for established coin references. Because there is a massive difference between an asking price and a price someone actually paid. Now comes the question everyone wants answered. How much is your 1986 no-mint mark Lincoln penny worth? If it's a normal circulated example, the answer may be close to face value. If it's a nice uncirculated coin, the value can rise. If it reaches an exceptionally high certified grade, the value can become much more interesting. And if you discover a genuine major mint error, the story changes completely. That's where the big numbers can appear. But $1 million value should never be assumed just because there is no mint mark. The real treasure is finding something that makes your coin different from the billions of ordinary examples. So go grab your coin jar. Check your old penny rolls. Look through that inherited collection. And if you have a 1986 Lincoln cent, turn it over, inspect it carefully, and ask yourself one simple question. Is this just a normal Philadelphia penny? Or is there something unusual hiding in plain sight? And remember, the most valuable detail may not be the year. It may be the error you almost missed. If you find a 1986 penny with an unusual weight, strange strike, major doubling, abnormal edge, or another feature you can't explain, take a clear photo and compare it with reliable references before doing anything to the coin. You never know what might be hiding in an old jar of change. Have you ever found a 1986 Lincoln penny with no mint mark? And did you notice anything unusual about it? Tell me what you found in the comments. And if you enjoy discovering hidden value in ordinary American coins, subscribe for more rare coin stories, surprising errors, and the tiny details that could make an everyday penny worth far more than 1 cent. What if a penny you could spend for just 1 cent is hiding a secret worth tens of thousands of dollars? If you have a 1988 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, do not spend it yet, because one extremely rare variety has already sold for $64,000, and the difference can be almost impossible to see with the naked eye. Take a close look at your 1988 penny, because today we're going to uncover exactly what makes certain 1988 Lincoln cents valuable, where the hidden error is located, and why that tiny detail could turn an ordinary-looking penny into a serious collector prize. And here's the twist. The words "no mint mark" do not automatically make a 1988 penny rare. In fact, most 1988 pennies without a mint mark were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and billions were produced. So if you have a normal 1988 Philadelphia penny, it is generally just a 1-cent coin. But there is a very important exception. And this is where the story gets interesting. Flip the penny over. Look at the reverse, the side showing the Lincoln Memorial. Now find the tiny initials FG near the right side of the building. Those letters represent designer Frank Gasparo. Most people would never think twice about those 2 tiny letters. But collectors do. Because some 1988 Lincoln cents were struck with a reverse design intended for 1989. Think about that for a second. The date on the front says 1988, but part of the design on the back belongs to the next year. That is the kind of minting mistake collectors love. This variety is commonly known as the 1988 Flared G, or FS901, and it is associated with the reverse of 1989. The easiest place to begin looking is the G in FG. The 1989 style reverse has a distinctive serif and different shape compared with the normal 1988 reverse. So before you throw that old 1988 penny back into your change jar, inspect the tiny G. But there's another secret you absolutely need to know. Not every unusual-looking G is valuable. Lighting can make letters appear different. Scratches can create false doubling. Damage from circulation can make a coin look strange. And machine doubling can fool even beginning collectors. So if your 1988 penny looks different, don't immediately assume you've discovered a fortune. There is a much rarer possibility hiding on the front. And this one is where the big money story begins. Turn the coin back over to Lincoln's portrait. Now look carefully at Abraham Lincoln's ear. Yes, his ear. It sounds almost ridiculous, but that tiny area is connected to one of the most famous 1988 Lincoln cent varieties. The variety is known as the 1988 doubled ear, designated FS101. Instead of a normal single ear shape, the rare double die variety shows an additional raised area around the ear and earlobe. And this is not the same thing as a scratch. It is not simply damage. It is a variety created during the die-making process, and that distinction matters enormously. Here is where you need to slow down. If you are checking a 1988 penny right now, do not use your fingernail, knife, or anything sharp to scrape the ear. Never clean the coin just because you think you've found something. Cleaning can permanently damage a collectible coin and can destroy some of the value you might otherwise have had. Instead, use bright light and magnification. A basic coin loop can make a huge difference. Look at Lincoln's ear from several angles. Move the light. Rotate the coin. Then compare what you see with authenticated examples of the 1988 doubled ear variety. Why is this important? Because the difference between a genuine die variety and ordinary damage can be worth an enormous amount of money. And we now have a remarkable example of just how valuable this particular 1988 error can become. In 2026, a 1988 Lincoln sent with the doubled ear variety, graded PCGS MS63 red-brown, sold for $64,000 at auction. Let that number sink in. $64,000. For a 1-cent coin. But there is a major warning here. That does not mean every 1988 penny is worth $64,000. It doesn't even mean every 1988 doubled ear penny is worth $64,000. The auction coin was an exceptionally rare, certified example, and PCGS had graded only 3 examples of the 1988 doubled ear variety across its recorded grades and color designations at the time of the sale. That rarity is what makes this story so exciting. Imagine finding a 1988 penny in an old jar, a drawer, a coin roll, or a collection you inherited, and noticing something unusual around Lincoln's ear. Most people would spend it. Collector would stop. That one decision could make all the difference. But let's go back to the beginning because there is another misconception that can cost you money. Your 1988 penny has no mint mark. Does that mean it was made somewhere unusual? No. A missing mint mark on a 1988 Lincoln cent is normal for Philadelphia circulation strikes. That means you should not automatically treat the absence of a D or S as an error. The mint mark is located below the date on the obverse. A D indicates Denver. An S was used on proof cents from San Francisco. And a blank space where the mint mark would normally appear indicates Philadelphia for a standard 1988 circulation cent. So the real question is not simply, does my 1988 penny have no mint mark? The real question is, does my 1988 penny have a recognized rare variety or error? That is a much better question. And now you know where to look. Start with the front. Check Lincoln's ear. Then flip the coin. Check the FG initials. And finally, examine the overall condition. Because condition can dramatically change the value of modern Lincoln cents. A heavily circulated coin with scratches, stains, corrosion, or damaged surfaces may be worth very little even if it looks interesting. A high-grade coin with strong original surfaces can be dramatically more desirable. This is why serious collectors don't just ask whether a coin has an error. They ask how rare the variety is, how strong the characteristics are, how much original condition remains, and whether the coin can be authenticated and graded. And there is one more thing you should remember. Do not clean it. I know the temptation is strong. You find an old penny, it looks dirty, and you think, if I polish this, maybe it'll look more valuable. That can be a huge mistake. Collectors generally prefer original surfaces. Harsh cleaning can leave scratches, unnatural shine, or other signs that the coin has been altered. So if you think your 1988 penny is special, leave it alone. Put it somewhere safe. Take clear photos. Compare it with trusted references. And if the evidence looks convincing, consider having the coin examined by a professional or submitted to a reputable grading service. Now let's talk about the famous $64,000 sale one more time. The incredible part isn't just the price. It's the story behind it. A coin struck in 1988 carried a tiny mistake that most people could never see. Decades passed. The coin survived. It ended up in the hands of collectors. And eventually, that tiny minting anomaly became valuable enough to bring $64,000 at auction. That's the magic of coin collecting. The value isn't always sitting in the date. Sometimes it's sitting in one letter. Sometimes it's in a tiny part of Lincoln's ear. Sometimes it's in a die variety that looks almost identical to millions of ordinary coins. And sometimes the most valuable clue is the one everybody ignores. But let's bring this back to your coin. If you have a 1988 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, don't get too excited just yet. The no mint mark feature by itself is normal. Your first checkpoint is the ear. Does Lincoln appear to have an unusual raised secondary area around the ear or earlobe? If yes, don't clean the coin. Your second checkpoint is the reverse. Look closely at the FG. Does the G show the characteristics associated with the rare flared G variety? If yes, take a closer look and compare it against authenticated references. Your third checkpoint is condition. Is the coin heavily worn, or does it still have sharp details and original-looking surfaces? And your fourth checkpoint is authentication. Because when we're talking about potentially thousands of dollars, guessing isn't enough. You want evidence. You want comparison. And ultimately, you want professional confirmation if the coin appears to be a genuine major variety. Now here's the question I want you to answer. Have you ever found a 1988 Lincoln penny with no mint mark? And if you have one nearby, have you ever looked at Lincoln's ear under magnification? Check your drawers. Check old coin jars. Check inherited collections. Check rolls of pennies. And don't forget those forgotten boxes where someone may have dumped pocket change years ago. You could find nothing. You could find a normal Philadelphia cent worth 1 cent. Or you could discover something far more interesting. That's what makes searching so addictive. You never know what the next coin will reveal. And remember, the $64,000 example is an exceptional authenticated rarity, not a normal price for an ordinary 1988 penny. So don't believe anyone who tells you that every 1988 no mint mark penny is automatically worth a fortune. The real value is in the variety. The real value is in the evidence. And the real excitement is finding the tiny detail that millions of people overlook. So before you spend that 1988 Lincoln penny, flip it over. Check the FG. Flip it back. Check Lincoln's ear. Use magnification. Don't clean it. And if you think you've found something unusual, get a second opinion before doing anything with it. Because sometimes the difference between 1 cent and thousands of dollars isn't the year. It isn't the mint mark. It isn't even the age. Sometimes it's one tiny mistake made at the mint decades ago. And that tiny mistake could still be hiding in someone's collection today. If you enjoy discovering rare coins, hidden varieties, and valuable pennies hiding in plain sight, subscribe and stay tuned for the next one. Because that ordinary-looking coin sitting in your pocket might have a secret too. Stop before you spend that 1989 Lincoln penny. If there's no mint mark under the date, you may be looking at a coin collectors have searched for, but here's the shocking part. The missing mint mark itself does not make this penny worth $1 million. And that's exactly why you need to keep watching. Because the 1989 Lincoln penny with no mint mark has a fascinating story. Most examples are ordinary pocket change, but a small number of extremely high-grade coins and unusual mint errors can bring surprisingly strong prices. So if you have one sitting in a jar, drawer, cash register, or old collection, don't spend it until you know what you're looking at. Let's start with the biggest mystery. Why does your 1989 penny have no mint mark? You might look directly underneath the date and expect to see a tiny letter. Maybe a D, maybe an S. But on a normal 1989 Lincoln cent made at the Philadelphia Mint, there is no mint mark at all. That means if your 1989 penny says 1989 and there is nothing underneath the date, you haven't automatically discovered a minting mistake. You've most likely found a Philadelphia penny. And here's where things get interesting. The Philadelphia Mint produced more than 7.2 billion Lincoln cents dated 1989. That means the ordinary 1989 no mint mark penny is actually very common. So why are people talking about huge values? Because the date alone isn't the secret. The real secret is what happened to your particular coin after it was struck. Think about it this way. Imagine two identical 1989 pennies coming out of the same mint. One gets tossed into circulation, spends decades in pockets, hits the ground, gets scratched, loses its original shine, and eventually ends up in a coin jar. The other one is struck beautifully, survives without significant marks, keeps its original bright red color, and somehow avoids circulation for decades. They both say 1989. They both have no mint mark. But collectors may value them very differently. That difference is the first thing you need to understand. The 1989 Lincoln cent is a copper-plated zinc coin. It weighs about 2.50 grams and measures 19 millimeters across with a plain edge. Now grab your coin and look closely. Don't just look at the date. Look at Lincoln's portrait. Look around the fields of the coin. Look at the lettering. Look at the rim. And most importantly, look at the color. Does the coin look dull, brown, scratched, and heavily worn? Or does it still have that bright, original reddish color and strong mint luster? That difference can be extremely important. Here's a quick test. Tilt the penny underneath a bright light. Move it slowly from side to side. If you see original luster moving across the surface, that's a good sign. But if the surface is covered with scratches, dark spots, cleaning marks, or heavy wear, the coin is probably not going to be a major rarity simply because it has no mint mark. And this is where many online videos get confusing. You may have seen a headline claiming that a 1989 no mint mark penny is worth thousands, or even $1 million. That sounds incredible. But you need to separate the exciting headline from the actual coin. There is no established evidence that a normal 1989 Philadelphia Lincoln penny with no mint mark is worth $1 million. In fact, PCGS lists a top auction record of $4,113 for a 1989 Lincoln cent graded MS-68, sold by Heritage Auctions in 2013. That is still an incredible amount of money for a 1-cent coin. But notice something very important. The value did not come from simply being a 1989 penny with no mint mark. It came from the coin being an exceptionally high-grade specimen. And that changes everything. Now imagine finding one of these in an old collection. Maybe someone put it away in 1989 because it looked unusually shiny. Maybe it was pulled from a fresh roll and placed in a holder. Maybe it spent almost its entire life protected from circulation. 37 years later, you discover it. You look at it and think, it's just a penny. But a professional grader may see something very different. They may see a coin with unusually strong surfaces, beautiful original color, and almost no distracting marks. That's where the mystery begins. Because condition is not just about whether a coin looks shiny. Professional grading is much more demanding. A coin can look fantastic to your eyes and still have tiny marks that prevent it from reaching the highest grades. That's why you should never clean a potentially valuable penny. This is one of the biggest mistakes beginners make. They find an old coin, think it looks dirty, grab a chemical, polish, cloth, or household cleaner, and try to make it shine. Don't do it. Cleaning can damage the original surface and reduce collector appeal. A coin that looks slightly dull but has an original surface can be much more desirable than a coin that has been artificially polished. So leave the coin alone. Now let's talk about the details that could make your 1989 penny more interesting. Start with the date. Make sure it really says 1989. Then look directly underneath it. If there is no mint mark, that is normal for a Philadelphia 1989 cent. If you see a D, you have a Denver minted coin instead. Next, examine the entire surface under magnification. Look for unusual doubling. Look for major off-center striking. Look for cracks or unusual raised areas that appear to be part of the minting process. Look for missing or abnormal design elements. And pay close attention to the edge. A normal Lincoln cent has a plain edge. If your coin has something dramatically unusual, don't assume it is damage. Set it aside and have it examined by someone experienced with mint errors. Here's another fascinating possibility. Because 1989 cents were made from copper-plated zinc, some unusual production errors involving the plating or planchet can attract collector attention. For example, a genuine 1989 cent that appears completely silver or gray instead of copper-colored could deserve closer examination. But be careful. A strange-looking coin is not automatically a valuable error. Coins can be chemically altered, scratched, discolored, plated, or damaged after leaving the mint. That's why authentication matters. And now we reach the part everyone has been waiting for. What is your 1989 no mint mark penny actually worth? If you pull a normal circulated example from your pocket, the answer is usually simple. It may be worth around face value, perhaps with a small premium depending on condition and collector demand. A typical circulated 1989 Philadelphia cent is not a $1 million coin. But move into uncirculated territory, and the story changes. High-grade examples can bring substantially more. PCGS records show that an MS-68 example reached $4,113 at auction. And that number tells us something important. The coin world can be strange. A coin with a face value of 1 cent can sell for thousands when it has the right combination of condition, color, rarity, and collector demand. But there's another number you should remember. 7 billion plus. That is roughly how many 1989 Philadelphia cents were struck. So the challenge isn't simply finding a 1989 penny. The challenge is finding the unusual one, the exceptional one, the error, the ultra-high-grade example, the coin that somehow survived decades better than almost every other example. That is what you should be hunting for. So take another look at your 1989 penny. Is the date sharp? Is the surface original? Is the coin bright red? Are there scratches across Lincoln's cheek? Are the fields clean? Does the lettering look normal? Is the rim intact? Does anything appear dramatically doubled, missing, distorted, or struck in the wrong place? If everything looks completely normal and the coin has been heavily circulated, don't be disappointed. You still have a piece of American history. But if your 1989 penny looks unusually pristine, or you believe you've discovered a genuine mint error, that's when you should slow down. Take clear photographs. Weigh the coin using an accurate scale. Do not clean it. And consider having it examined by a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service. Because the difference between an ordinary penny and a collectible rarity can sometimes be hidden in details that are almost impossible to see with the naked eye. And remember the most important lesson from this entire story. No mint mark does not automatically mean rare. For a 1989 Lincoln cent, no mint mark is normally the Philadelphia issue. The real question is, what else is special about your coin? That is where the potential value begins. So before you throw that old penny into a vending machine, a tip jar, or a cash register, take 5 seconds and look at the date. If you see 1989, flip it over. Look under the date. Then inspect the condition. Because while the ordinary coin may only be worth a cent, an extraordinary example can be worth thousands. And that is the real hidden money secret behind the 1989 Lincoln penny. Now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1989 Lincoln penny with no mint mark? Tell me in the comments what condition it's in. Is it brown and worn? Is it bright red? Does it have any strange markings or possible errors? You never know what someone else might spot. And if you enjoy hunting through pocket change for coins that could be worth far more than their face value, make sure you subscribe. Because the next coin sitting in your change jar might look completely ordinary, until you know exactly what to look for. Stop. Before you spend that 1995 Lincoln penny, take a closer look. One tiny detail could make the difference between a 1-cent coin and a coin collectors would pay serious money for. But here's the twist. Most 1995 pennies are not worth anywhere near $1 million. So why do people keep talking about this coin as a possible fortune? The answer is hiding in the details. Today, we're taking a close look at the 1995 Lincoln penny, including the date, the Denver mint mark, condition, errors, and the mistakes that can cause collectors to overlook a valuable coin. And stay with me because near the end, I'll explain what could actually make a 1995 penny valuable, and what you should never assume just because a coin looks unusual. Imagine reaching into an old jar of coins, grabbing a penny, and noticing the date, 1995. You flip it over and see a small D underneath the date. At first, it looks completely ordinary. And that's exactly why this coin can be interesting. The 1995 Lincoln cent was made at the Denver Mint, and ordinary examples are common. In circulated condition, you generally should not expect a life-changing fortune. In fact, many examples are worth only their face value. But coin collecting has one rule you should never forget. Condition and variety matter. 2 pennies can have the same date and mint mark, yet one can be worth dramatically more than the other. So let's start with the first thing you need to check. Look directly at the date. You want to see 1995. Then look underneath the date. If you see a small D, that tells you the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. Now flip the coin over. You should see the Lincoln Memorial in the center, with 1 cent underneath and United States of America around the design. Nothing strange yet? Good, because the real hunt starts now. Take a close look at the lettering. Collectors pay attention to unusual doubling, missing details, die damage, off-center strikes, and other mint-made errors. But there's an important warning here. Not every strange-looking penny is an error. This is where many beginners make a costly mistake. A coin can become scratched, bent, stained, corroded, or damaged after leaving the mint. Those problems can make a coin look unusual, but they usually do not turn it into a valuable mint error. So if your 1995 D penny has a deep scratch across Lincoln's face, that is not automatically a jackpot. If the edge is damaged, that does not automatically mean the mint made a mistake. And if the coin has a strange color because of environmental exposure, that does not automatically make it rare. Now, here's where things get much more interesting. Imagine you find a 1995 D penny that looks almost perfect. The surfaces are clean. The lettering is sharp. Lincoln's portrait has strong detail. The reverse design is crisp. There are very few marks. Suddenly, condition becomes extremely important. Coins are often graded on a scale that goes from heavily worn circulated examples to extremely high-grade uncirculated pieces. For a modern Lincoln cent like this, collectors can pay much more attention to coins that have exceptional preservation. And there's another detail that can make a huge difference. Original color. You may hear collectors describe copper coins using terms such as brown, and red. A bright, original red appearance can be especially desirable on an uncirculated copper cent. But be careful. Never clean the coin to make it look brighter. That can actually hurt its value. This is one of the biggest mistakes new collectors make. They find an old penny, notice dark spots or dull surfaces, and think, I can make this look brand new. So they polish it. They scrub it. They use chemicals. And then they discover something painful. The coin that might have attracted a collector's attention has been permanently altered. A natural, original surface is usually far more desirable than a shiny coin that has been cleaned. Now let's talk about the $1 million claim. You may have seen videos or posts claiming that a 1995 D Lincoln penny can be worth $1 million. That headline sounds incredible. But you need to separate internet hype from documented market value. There is no reason to assume that an ordinary 1995 D Lincoln cent is worth $1 million simply because it has a D mint mark. That would be misleading. The real excitement comes from the possibility of an extraordinary example, a major mint error, an extremely rare variety, or an exceptional condition coin with strong collector demand. And even then, you should never trust a random online claim. A coin's value is determined by what comparable examples actually sell for, not by the biggest number someone puts in a thumbnail. Think about it this way. If someone writes one penny worth $1 million on social media, that does not magically make the penny worth $1 million. The evidence matters. Auction records matter. Professional grading matters. The exact error matters. And the condition matters. So what should you look for on your 1995 D? Start with the date. Use a magnifying glass if necessary. Check the numbers for unusual doubling. Look at the D mint mark. Then inspect Lincoln's portrait. Pay attention to the letters of liberty and I in God we trust. Now flip the coin. Look carefully at the words United States of America, 1 cent, and E pluribus unum. Are any letters noticeably doubled? Does anything appear to be struck more than once? Does the design look shifted? Is the coin dramatically off-center? Is there an unusual area where metal appears to have been struck incorrectly? These are the kinds of details that deserve further investigation. But there's another trap. Machine doubling can sometimes look like valuable doubled lettering. To an inexperienced collector, the two can appear similar. That's why simply seeing a second edge around a letter does not prove you have a rare doubled die. You need to identify what actually happened to the coin. And if the feature looks significant, compare it with reliable references or have the coin examined by an experienced numismatist or professional grading service. Now let's imagine two 1995 D pennies sitting side by side. The first one has been in circulation for decades. Lincoln's cheek is worn. The hair details are weak. The letters have small scratches. The surface is dull. The second coin looks almost untouched. Sharp details. Strong luster. Minimal contact marks. Excellent original color. Same date. Same mint mark. But completely different collector appeal. That's the hidden lesson. The year alone doesn't create the fortune. The details create the story. And sometimes the story begins with a mistake at the mint. Mint errors happen when something goes wrong during production. A blank planchet can be struck incorrectly. A die can have a problem. A coin can receive an unusual strike. Multiple striking events can sometimes create dramatic results. But genuine errors are much rarer than ordinary damaged coins. That distinction is incredibly important. Because if you search through 100 pennies and find one with a strange scratch, that does not mean you've found a rare error. But if you find a coin with a clear, unusual mint-made characteristic that can be verified, now you have something worth investigating. And here's another reason not to ignore your older pennies. Modern cents can be overlooked because people assume only extremely old coins are valuable. That isn't true. A coin doesn't have to be from the 1800s to attract collectors. Sometimes a relatively modern coin becomes desirable because of a specific variety, error, condition, or unusual production feature. That's why serious collectors inspect coins instead of judging them by age alone. So what could your 1995 D penny actually be worth? An ordinary circulated example is generally not a $1 million coin. A typical worn 1995 D cent may be worth little more than face value. A better preserved, uncirculated example can bring more interest, especially if it has strong eye appeal. Exceptional certified examples can command higher premiums depending on grade, color, demand, and the current market. And a genuine major mint error could potentially be worth substantially more than a normal example. But remember, the exact value depends on the exact coin. There is no universal price tag for every 1995 D penny. Now comes the moment I want you to remember. If you have a 1995 D Lincoln penny, don't throw it away just because it looks ordinary. But don't assume you're holding a $1 million coin either. Instead, inspect it. Check the date. Check the D. Check both sides. Look for unusual doubling. Look for major striking problems. Look at the condition. And most importantly, don't clean it. Put it somewhere safe and compare it with reliable information. If you believe you've found something unusual, take clear photos under good lighting and get a second opinion before spending money on expensive services. Because the most dangerous mistake in coin collecting isn't missing a rare coin. It's believing a coin is valuable without proving why. So now I want to know something. Have you ever found a 1995 D Lincoln penny in your pocket change? An old coin jar? A drawer? Or a family collection? If you have one nearby, go grab it. Turn it over. Look closely at that tiny D. Then inspect every letter and every detail. You might discover nothing unusual, and that's completely normal. But you might notice something you've never seen before. And that's what makes coin hunting so addictive. You never know what the next coin will reveal. The 1995 D Lincoln penny may not be a $1 million coin just because of its date and mint mark, but an unusual, genuinely rare example can still be worth investigating. So before you spend your next handful of pennies, slow down. Look closely. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary can sometimes be smaller than the width of a letter. And if you enjoy uncovering hidden value in everyday coins, subscribe for more rare coin discoveries, valuable errors, and Lincoln pennies you should check before spending them. Because that next penny in your pocket, it might be ordinary. Or it might be the one you almost spent without looking. What if that ordinary 2015 Lincoln penny sitting in your pocket right now looks completely normal, but one tiny detail could make you stop and take a second look? And what if someone told you a 2015 penny with no mint mark could be worth $1 million? Before you get too excited, there is a surprising truth you need to know. Today, we're taking a close look at the 2015 Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark, why collectors pay attention to certain examples, what mistakes people make when identifying it, and which hidden details could actually make a modern penny worth far more than 1 cent. So before you throw that 2015 penny into a vending machine, tip jar, or coin jar, look at it carefully. Because the biggest mistake you can make is assuming every penny with no mint mark is automatically rare. Here's where the mystery begins. Flip a 2015 Lincoln penny over and look at the front, right underneath the date. You may see nothing at all. No P, no D, no S, just a blank space. That blank space is exactly what gets many people excited. But here's the twist. A 2015 Lincoln cent without a mint mark is normally a Philadelphia mint coin. Philadelphia produced billions of Lincoln cents in 2015, and those regular Philadelphia cents were intentionally made without a mint mark. In fact, about 4.691 billion were struck there that year. So if your 2015 penny has no mint mark, Don't immediately assume you've discovered a $1 million error. That doesn't mean you should spend it without checking. Because now we get to the part that can actually make a modern penny interesting. Condition. Imagine two 2015 pennies sitting next to each other on a table. They were both made in the same year. They have the same Lincoln portrait. They have the same Union Shield reverse. They are both Philadelphia cents. One has been sitting in circulation for years, scratched, dull, dirty, and worn. The other looks almost untouched. The original surface is still bright. The lettering is sharp. Lincoln's hair and facial details are crisp. The reverse has strong detail, and the coin looks like it just left the mint. Would you believe those two coins can have completely different collector values? That's because coin collectors don't simply ask, "What year is it?" They also ask, "What condition is it in?" A heavily circulated 2015 Philadelphia penny is generally worth about 1 cent. A nice uncirculated example can be worth more, while extremely high-grade certified coins can bring substantially higher prices. One documented 2015 penny graded MS67 Plus red sold for $381 in 2023. And that leads to one of the biggest secrets about modern pennies. Rarity isn't always about age. Sometimes it's about condition. Think about it this way. Millions of people have handled modern pennies. They get dropped, scratched, rubbed against other coins, carried in pockets, dumped into machines, and thrown into jars. Finding a 2015 penny is easy. Finding one that survived in exceptional condition is much harder. Now grab your coin and look closely at the date. Is the 2015 clearly visible? Is the surface heavily scratched? Does Lincoln's portrait show signs of wear? Is the original reddish color still present? And most importantly, does the coin have any unusual minting characteristics? This is where you need to slow down, because there is a huge difference between a coin that looks unusual and a genuine mint error. A tiny scratch isn't necessarily an error. A stain isn't necessarily an error. A dent isn't necessarily an error. A strange-looking letter isn't automatically an error either. Collectors look for evidence that something unusual happened during the actual minting process. For example, genuine errors can include things like dramatic off-center strikes, major die problems, wrong planchets, or certain double die varieties. And when a genuine error combines with a scarce date, strong condition, and collector demand, the value can change dramatically. But there's another trap that catches thousands of new collectors. The phrase, "no mint mark." You may see online listings claiming that a 2015 penny without a mint mark is a rare error worth thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even $1 million. Be careful. The absence of a mint mark on a normal 2015 Philadelphia Lincoln cent is not, by itself, an error. Philadelphia cents were intentionally produced without a mint mark. That one fact can save you from making a very expensive mistake. But don't click away yet, because there is still something you should check. Turn the coin over. Look at the Union Shield. The reverse of the 2015 Lincoln cent features the shield design representing the strength and unity of the United States. Now examine the lettering, the shield, the edges, and the overall strike. Does anything appear dramatically doubled? Does the coin look struck away from the center? Is there an unusual piece of metal attached to the surface? Does the edge look normal? Is the coin noticeably thinner, thicker, or shaped differently from a normal cent? Those are the kinds of clues that deserve closer attention. And here's another important point. Never clean the coin just because it looks dirty. A beginner may think, if I polish this penny, it'll look brand new. That's usually the wrong move. Cleaning can damage the original surface and reduce collector appeal. A coin with natural surfaces is generally more desirable than a coin that has been aggressively polished or scrubbed. So if you think you've found something unusual, leave it alone. Put it in a safe holder and have it examined. Now let's talk about the $1 million claim. Could a normal 2015 Lincoln penny with no mint mark realistically be worth $1 million? Based on the known information about the regular 2015 Philadelphia issue, there is no credible basis for saying that an ordinary no mint mark example is worth $1 million. The standard issue was produced in enormous numbers, and ordinary circulated examples are generally worth face value. But that doesn't make the hunt pointless. Far from it. The real excitement is discovering whether your particular coin is something different from the ordinary examples. A spectacular mint error, an extraordinary condition rarity, or another authenticated variety could create collector interest. And that's the difference between a fantasy price and a real collectible. Don't judge a coin by an internet listing asking $1 million. Look for actual evidence. Look for documented sales. Look for professional certification. Look for established auction records. And most importantly, learn exactly what makes the coin different. Now imagine you open your old coin jar tonight. You find a 2015 penny. You look underneath the date. Nothing. No P. No D. No S. For a second, you think, I found the rare one. But now you know something most casual collectors don't. That missing mint mark is normal for a Philadelphia 2015 cent. So instead of stopping there, you keep investigating. You examine the condition. You inspect the date. You check Lincoln's portrait. You flip it over. You inspect the Union shield. You examine the edge. And then you discover something genuinely unusual. That's the moment the hunt becomes interesting. Because coin collecting isn't really about believing every penny is secretly worth a fortune. It's about knowing what you're looking at. And sometimes that knowledge is more valuable than the coin itself. So here's your challenge. Go find your 2015 Lincoln pennies. Don't just check one. Check several. Compare their surfaces side by side. Look for the cleanest, sharpest example. Then inspect the details under good lighting. If you believe you've found a genuine mint error or an exceptionally high-grade coin, don't clean it, don't damage it, and don't immediately sell it to the first person who makes an offer. Get a second opinion from a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service. And remember this, a 2015 penny with no mint mark is normally a Philadelphia coin, not $1 million error simply because the mint mark is missing. Still, the search is worth doing. Because the next unusual coin you find might not be the one everyone online is talking about. Could be a completely different year, a different error, a different variety, or simply an incredibly well-preserved coin that most people would have spent without thinking twice. That's what makes coin hunting so addictive. Millions of coins pass through American hands every day. Most are ordinary. But every once in a while, something unusual survives. And the only way to find it is to look. So, do you have a 2015 Lincoln penny with no mint mark? Take it out. Give it a careful inspection. And tell me in the comments what condition yours is in and whether you found anything unusual. If you enjoy discovering hidden value in ordinary American coins, subscribe for more rare coin stories, valuable penny discoveries, and simple tips that could help you spot something special before it disappears back into circulation. Because the next coin you check might be ordinary, or it might be the one you almost spent.